Hey, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be showing you how to make this awesome wall-mounted workbench with storage in a weekend for just under 40 bucks with tools you probably already own, like a level, handsaw, drill, wood screws, wood glue, and a few clamps if you have them, but they're not completely necessary. So let's get started.
Like any project, I'm going to be starting out by drawing what I'll be building. I don't like making digital plans because these things are very easy to make and don't require much planning or even drawing skills for that matter. So I'll start with a 4x8 sheet of either particleboard, MDF, plywood, or OSB. They all have their pros and cons, so do a little research and find what suits you best. With your 4x8 sheet drawn out, your first cut will be at 67 inches. And then take the larger 67-inch piece and make a cut at 18 inches. You should now have a piece that's 67 by 30 inches and another slice that's 67 by 18 inches. Now take the 29 by 48 inch leftover piece from the first cut and have the nice folks at the home center cut that into 4 pieces of 10 by 18. Or you could take it home and use a table saw, circular saw, jigsaw, or even a hand saw, whatever is easier on you. Next you'll need 3 8-foot long 2x4s. Grab the cheap ones that are less than $3 each. Just make sure you pick the good ones and not anything that's bent, chipped, or deformed. Cut the first board at 67 inches and keep the cut off. You can leave it at the length that it is, but if you want to be particular, go ahead and cut it at 18 inches. Again, not required. Now grab the last 2 boards. The cuts on these 2 will be identical. Measure out 33 inches and make the cut on both the boards. Now measure over another 33 inches and make 2 more cuts. You should be left with 2 pieces that are close to 30 inches each. Now these 2 pieces will determine the height of the workbench, so cut them how you see fit. Since the workbench itself will be 11.5 inches tall, you want the 2x4s cut at around 22 to 26 inches depending on how high you prefer your bench to be. I'd like mine to be about 37 inches tall, so I'll take 37 minus 11.5, which gives me 25.5, which will be the length at which I cut these last 2 pieces. After those few cuts, you're ready for assembly. But while you're still out shopping, go ahead and grab yourself something from the discount cart because you'll be working hard on this and you deserve something nice for yourself. Also, I'll be using these plastic containers as drawers, which only cost $1 each. You can find them pretty much anywhere. Now to get started on the build, I need to rip down 4 pieces of particle board that are 10 by 18 since I didn't have that done at the home center. Now I'll take the piece that's 67 by 18 and lay it down on my workbench, but the floor is equally acceptable if you don't already have a workbench. Now stand one of the 10 by 18 pieces on either end and start laying out where you'd like your drawers to fit. I'm going to be putting 3 on the sides with 2 more boards next to them, which allows me to have 2 more drawers in the middle with a little bit of wiggle room around each drawer. Depending on the size of your plastic containers, this may vary a little bit. Now to fasten the smaller boards to the larger one can be a little tricky, but there's several ways to do this. I'm going to be using pocket holes, but you can just as easily drill up from underneath or lay the smaller pieces on the larger 67 by 30 inch and then lay the 67 by 18 piece on the top of that and drill from the top. After drilling the pocket holes, I'm going to add a little bit of wood glue. Now, this isn't going to be able to hold any weight. I'm just using the wood glue to keep the boards in place while I drive in the screws because when you put in pocket holes, sometimes the pieces shift a little bit. So give the glue about an hour to settle and then drive in the screws. And while the glue is drying, go ahead and grab the 2x4s that you cut earlier and start mounting them to the wall. This will be my main support. I'm going to be making it flush with the stud at the end, which is where I got the 67 inches from. You can adjust this length however you see fit. Just make sure the offcut will be at least 18 inches, otherwise you'll have to go out and grab another board. If your walls are covered with drywall, no worries. Just grab a stud finder and mark where each one is because I'll be driving a 3-inch wood screw into each stud for maximum sturdiness so the bench can hold a lot of weight. And a quick tip on helping your board stay up while you mount it to the wall and make sure it's level is to just add a small nail to the stud for it to sit on temporarily. To determine how high the back support will need to be, you'll first need to find your ideal work surface height. Since mine is going to be 37 inches tall, I'll take 37 minus the thickness of the particle board, which is 3/4 of an inch, which gives me 36 1/4 inch, which is where the top of the support board will need to be mounted on the wall. And for the 18-inch long secondary support, I'll just need it to be flush with the length of the legs, which is 25.5 inches. Once you have the back support on, mount the secondary support, making sure the front of it is 30 inches from the wall and the top is flush with your leg height, which in my case is 25.5 inches. You'll notice I have a pole in my way. To fix this, I'll just cut a hole the same diameter as a post and cut to the hole with a jigsaw, so I'm able to slide the work surface into place when I get to that point. Next, I'm going to be making the cuts on my 33-inch leg pieces so that I can slide them over the bottom stud on my wall. To do this, just trace the outline of a scrap piece of 2x4 on the leg and cut out the shape. Make sure you test the fit as well. Now we're ready for assembly. Lay the 33-inch leg with the cutout facing down, as well as its matching 33-inch top leg piece above it, and connect them with the vertical leg piece. Just apply a bit of wood glue and screw them together with at least 2 wood screws. Just do this twice so you have 2 matching leg components that are in the shape of a U. Now slide one of the finished leg pieces in place up against one of the studs and clamp it down, making sure it's level. If the floor is a little uneven like mine is, you can use a shim to adjust the leveling. Once everything is in place, pre-drill and drive in a couple wood screws. Now do the same for the other finished leg, making sure it's close to the center in between the wall and the outermost leg. They should be perfectly level with each other, but if they're not, just add a shim to one of them and adjust the leveling. Once the legs are done, you now have a place to mount the bottom work surface section. After lining it to the front of the legs on the secondary support, pre-drill and screw into the legs beneath. After just 2 screws, this thing is very sturdy. Try to shake the whole thing around, looking for weak spots. When you find one, just drive in another screw, and that's all you gotta do. Now before I put the main work surface on, I'm going to add a few scrap pieces of wood as drawer stops so they don't get shoved all the way out the back. After that, I'm ready to add the main work surface, which can easily be attached with just a couple screws. I'm going to pre-drill as well as countersink the holes so the head of the screw isn't sticking up. After that, feel free to take a nap because that was a lot of work and you deserve one.
Alright, so you want to build a workbench, but the drywall's in the way. Well, the easiest solution you can use is cut all of these 33-inch long leg pieces to 30 inches. And when you go to mount them on the wall, just grab a scrap piece of 2x4, lay it up against the wall, and mount it directly to the stud. Use a stud finder if you can't find the studs. And then this is our leg, our new leg, and then mount it to that scrap piece of 2x4, driving in nails that way. That way you can get a 90-degree angle from the 2x4 stud. This is mounted to the wall, so that's nice and sturdy, and then this won't be going anywhere. And that's it. Do that on the bottom as well as the top piece here. So where the leg connects to the wall, just take your scrap piece of 2x4, it could be any length, it doesn't matter, and then mount that to the stud, and then take your 30-inch leg and mount that to your scrap piece of 2x4. And that's all there is to it. Alright guys, and that's all there is to it. So thank you again for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Keep an eye out for part 2, part 3, maybe even part 4. However long it takes me to finish this workbench, I'm going to be adding on to it as I go along. Miter station on this side, some pegboard for some storage, and some other things down here. So keep an eye out for that. In the meantime, feel free to check me out on Instagram, see what I'm up to. I'm going to be posting updates as I move along with not only this, but general projects in the workshop and everything I'm up to. So keep an eye out for that. And I am on Patreon. If you'd like to show your support and help me keep making these free videos, I would very much appreciate that. But in the meantime, I will see you next time. Thank you.